I'm Marcus Willcocks. I'm a designer and an action researcher. I work across multiple projects and mostly related to what I call social, spatial and collaborative design. I spend a lot of that time focused on, I guess it's the human scale of the built environment. I'm not an architect by training. My training's in kind of smaller scale things, but I love creative practice. I love built environments, and I love chances to explore where people can come together around, be that around topics of interest, or be that around challenges and areas of conflict. For close to 20 years, I've worked as a research fellow in Central St Martin's with an amazing team in London across 2 research centres. One of them is called the Socially Responsive Design Hub, and the other one is called Design Against Crime Research Centre. We look at how the thing that seems to be in common between lots of creative practitioners, which is we call wonky thinking, how it can disrupt and change the perspective and bring a new light to some of the challenges and some of the conflicts that we try and engage with. My interest is how it allows people to disagree with that. Antagonism is the opposite of agonism. So, you know, what does agonism look like through creative practice, in shared contexts? What does agonism look like when people get their hands on to the spaces that they live in, or the environments that they love or are most passionate about? I like to experiment with chances to open out conversations through practice in the built environment. If anything, maybe I'm a conversation designer, but I'm not an author. I'm not a storyteller in the old school way of you know, I've written, but I don't publish novels. My interest is in how the built environment can help people make their own stories. I've got a project with a friend called Rosanna Vitiello, and we're starting a network called the Urban Lexicons Network. And the point of that network is to explore more about how we speak to the built environment and how the built environment speaks back. We're feeling, lots of people have been expressing to us, and we ourselves feel that there's less agency, less opportunity to have this two-way conversation lately. And I guess, or I think that we're trying to find ways to help the digital support new kinds of encounter and new kinds of agency in built environments. So not so much say bring together this network and that network and that network for the sake of it, but to maybe to promote new kinds of language and new kinds of new ways that people can feel like they have some power or some opportunity to have a go at trying things out, maybe inspire some new visions or some new ideas. I think the great thing about digital technologies is that they're still easier to change, they're easier to challenge, they're easier to, in lots of cases, it's easier to have a voice through digital space if you have access to the right technologies than it is to have a voice in physical space very often. We'll see how that changes over the years, but there's some exciting possibilities around the ways that digital technologies can allow people to come together as part of prototyping and experimenting with visions that they have. Maybe in this notion of agonism, how could a web app mix with tomorrow's version of AR. I'm not totally convinced by the current versions of AR, but I think it's going somewhere. You know, how can people put the pieces together? How can people take a Minecraft and put it into their space? A bit like IKEA do with your sofa in your front room. How can, in a few years, communities have an argument about how they'd like to change their experience of urban space, how they'd like to change their experience of relating to each other in their neighbourhood. I can't think of many examples of networks that have emerged entirely from a grassroots position off the top of my head. I'm interested to know if there are others, but communities can also be organised from top-down structures, but there are millions of communities of interest and communities of geography and communities of proximity that come together with no instruction, but people through some kind of emotional or local interest or commonality, they feel a connection, and sometimes a community can come together because of a disinterest or a disagreement. But that's where I was talking about that kind of agonistic exploration, is how can communities come together around topics they disagree over and still work together. So I think in communities the notion of work or of collaboration is interesting and open to hear a response. I think a network doesn't necessarily tell us the kinds of relationships that can happen, and communities maybe allow, because they come from the people that form those groups, then I think a community can allow kind of wider breadth of discussion. I need to give it some more thought.